um, so I see a lot inside of agencies because I provide consulting to agencies that are looking for crazy data analysis, and or they get a really big account and they're like, we don't know how to do this, help
Yeah.
us. So I do see a lot of the inside workings of agencies. And one thing I see a lot is they can never make up their mind on a tool to use for organizing their processes. Has that been something you guys have been challenged by?
No, because I just keep it really simple. Like
Nice.
we talked about this a few weeks ago for simplicity. I think this was actually after a call. We were having a chat about finances, and
Mm-hmm.
you're listening to this billionaire investor, and he's like, the secret to success is forced simplicity. Now, I say disciplined simplicity, but we're talking about the concept of simplicity. People, every time you're adding a new tech stack in, a new project management, a new SOP, you're just going to be making it more complicated. Our agency literally operates off email. We talk communicating with clients, internal Slack system for our team, Google Sheets for tracking sheets, and we just do the damn work. We only offer very few services. It's either Google Ads for e-commerce, Google Ads for lead generation, Facebook Ads for lead generation, high converting landing pages, and the data analysis around it. So a lot of agencies are offering a lot of services, and then they've got a lot of team members and then a lot of subsidiary team members. It just gets wild.
Oh yeah.
I understand why that happens. I've worked at those agencies, 3 of them. That's why I've taken the good things and applied them to MarketLead, and all the bad things, I'm like, I'm never doing that stuff ever, no matter
Yeah.
what, no matter how much money's there, because the money you can always make more of, that time, stress, and energy, like that just goes into projects and stuff that it's not worth it. It's never
Mhm.
worth doing.
Yeah.
What are
Absolutely.
your thoughts?
Yeah. I
Because
because that's
just by the way, Cory, you've
oh
been asking me a lot of questions, and I don't want to make this seem like it's one sided. But like
that's
every time I say so, if you ask me a question, I want to know your opinion as well. So,
okay.
what are
That's
your
cool.
thoughts, Cory, right now?
Well, see, in this subject, I can't really offer much because I don't manage a team directly,
Yeah,
right? So,
but what do
so
you
that's why I want to
observe when
get.
you work with those agencies? That's the thing, because it's
Mhm.
also, it doesn't have to be you directly managing it. It could be your observed experience,
Yeah.
because you know the craft so well that when you observe a third party agency that you've got no emotional attachment to,
Yeah.
and you see how they're communicating to you, operating, or being like, yeah, this team member wants to do this. What are your thoughts? You're like, dude, how are you even thinking that's an okay strategy, or you're allowing your team to do that?
Yeah.
Like,
I
what are your thoughts on that
I think
stuff?
it gets to the core of something that I talk about all the time, which is focusing on the wrong things.
Yes.
We tend to focus on the shortcuts, and those are enticing. Those are really interesting. There is well designed ad and just marketing campaigns that are trying to distract you to change your tools, and this isn't good enough, you're missing
Yeah.
out, etc. So we are bombarded, especially as entrepreneurs, as soon as these algorithms pick up that we are into business in general, you're going to start getting bombarded by tools and
Yeah.
options, and this isn't good enough. Did you
Yes.
know that we do this? And
Yep.
you're going to be
Yeah.
distracted, and then you offload some of that distraction onto your team by going, you know what, guys, I think we need to change our, Slack is outdated, let's go somewhere else, let's try this new thing. And then you try it with your team for a month or two. They're kind of like, man, I just want to do my job, I don't want to learn this new software and do these onboarding calls and presentations. It's an eye roll, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully agency owners, if you're watching this, please listen to this part, because your employees don't usually tell you this stuff, because it's a 9 to 5 for a lot of these people. They just kind of want to do the job, and they're not usually going to speak up, and most people are pretty conflict avoidant, generally speaking, right? So you're not
Yeah.
really going to hear as much of the pushback of like, really, we have to try another PM tool, we have to do another
Yeah.
Google sheet for this thing. Like, didn't we already have this solved? Why are we even bothering? And again, focusing on the wrong thing. We have got to be focusing on providing the services that clients are paying us for. Clients are not paying us to stay organized in our PM and try another more optimized one and do from move to this. They
Yeah.
don't care. They want you to get the job done. They want you to put more money in their bank accounts. That's what they're paying you for. I mean, we want to be organized, sure. And people look to the owners and the C-level executives to have deterministic qualities, right? But we also want them to be organized, and we want them to be decisive, right?
Yeah.
That's attractive. We want that. So as employees, we're also looking for that decisiveness in our managers. But if you are going from one tool to the next because you don't think it's good enough, and because you're being distracted by all these different marketing things telling you this is not a good enough channel, or hey, did you know that this is a new AI thing that you should be trying? When you bounce around, your team can't focus on the job, which means you're not doing the best job at serving your clients. So that's a problem. These people are eventually going to recognize the results are not great, or they're subpar, or maybe it's just everything is really stagnant. Now, they won't be able to trace back to the fact that your team is having to spend 10, 20, sometimes 30% of their time learning these new softwares and tools that
Yeah.
get organized. But you're actually just you're taking away from what you're getting paid for. So I think that's really my main point is stop getting distracted by the newest tool, figure out how to best use the tools you already have made your decision on to use for your team, only and only if you find that you absolutely need something to better serve the client do you try some other tools. But generally, I'd like to recommend that those are going to be supplementary to the thing you already have built your team to get used to. That would be my thoughts on it.
Mate, what are these like? Look, I've been in the industry for a long time, probably more than I should be, have a bigger company and more money and all this stuff. But I've been in the industry for a long time and booked a few agencies, which I've mentioned. And I've got a lot of mates who run agencies. But what are all these tools that are people talking about? Like, is it things like Optimizer or like, project management tools? Because I don't use any of them. We don't use any of them, and we're killing it. And I'm like, why are these other agencies needing this stuff or thinking they need it when you actually don't? Like, what are some of these tools? And we're not poo-pooing brands, but I'm like,
No.
are they just project management tools? Are they ad management tools? Are they ad reporting tools? Like, there's ad analysis tools. Like, what type of ones are you seeing when you're saying these things? Because once again, curious here to learn.
Project management tools I think are the most
Yep.
common, and
Yeah.
just any kind of
Yeah.
communication tools like shifting from Google Workspace to Outlook, Gmail to Outlook in that case, Microsoft 360, whatever. I think that's the most common that really takes a ton of time to onboard and for everyone to wrap their head around how we're going to organize our processes and our templates and where everything is stored and how access is going to be
Yeah.
shared securely and where do we store the data and all this stuff. I tend to find it's that, not so much marketing tools, though that does happen too, where
I think
they
that's starting to creep up more and more. That's the one that's in the shadow. Everyone's like, "Oh, should I use these ad tools and
mm,
tracking tools?" But go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do see probably the most often because I deal in e-commerce so often that it's a feed management thing.
Yep.
Hey, have you
Yep.
heard of this one? I'm almost every day I get this question. Have you heard of this feed management? I'm like, honestly, I've lost track. It seems like there's hundreds of different ones. They all
Yeah.
tend to do basically the same thing. And again, this is not throwing shade on feed management tools. There should be a very clear value proposition that they can give you that you can't just do yourself or that you don't really want to do because it's too resource intensive in a spreadsheet. But to be honest, a lot of the feed management stuff can be and is done by really clever agencies just in Google Sheets, just by building custom rules
Well,
or inside of
mate,
Google Merchant Center itself.
this is what we talk about. And I know when we've talked about feed management, you're just like, "Yeah, dude, I just do it in a Google Sheet." I'm like, "So do I." Like this, if anyone's listening to this, I know it's like it sounds so simplistic
Mm.
and it's been harped on by me. Master Google Sheets. You will save, not only will you save tens of thousands of dollars a year in softwares, you will deliver better outcomes for your clients and you will end up making more money and you will work less time manually working on clients. When you were talking about this, all in my head, I'm like, anytime I've had like an issue in the business or like a software goes, I can do this, I just go, I can do that. You just give me an API or like export the data like through a script.
Yeah.
I know the formulas and I can customize it towards what my company actually needs, not what these softwares have maybe created. For all our biggest clients, mate, for e-commerce, we only use Feed. I only use Google Sheets because you've got the actual manual ability to do stuff and you can create custom formulas that dynamically do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know feed management tools can do that, but you don't need them. Like you don't want to become dependent on third-party tools when you can do it yourself because at the end of the day, if something changes like the prices skyrocket or something breaks or their customer support gets really bad or I don't know, things can happen when you've got like risks, third-party risks.
Yeah.
I'm avoiding that as much as possible just because I know that most of the time companies that go well just boost up their prices and they don't grandfather your price in anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's two schools of thought on that. So I think some people could push back and say, from a business, from a business decision standpoint, if you will, it's some things can be done yourself, but there is that, your most valuable resource is your time, and maybe it's not, at least in your current state of business, not worth it for you to try to build that stuff out yourself. Maybe you just don't have the resources for it in terms of education, skills, or money. It could just be it's not a good time. Okay, that's a good argument, right? Like some people just, instead of
I know what you're getting at,
tool,
mate. I know what you're getting at.
there is a
Product pitch. Product pitch.
There's a place for that. But also, in the other school of thought is some things are so sophisticated that you should not be trying to build it yourself. I usually talk about this in regards to attribution. That's another one that I hear a lot about. Should I use Tripleware? Should I use Northbeam? Should I use Wicked Report? Should I use and here's the thing, guys, is they're all going to be using their own proprietary machine learning. Using your data, but it's also usually going to be using aggregate data, so from other advertisers in some cases. Now, here's the thing. There's always going to be a discrepancy. Like if I have a client that's using Triple Whale and Northbeam, they've used Triple Whale for a while, then they went to Northbeam or whatever, they sometimes will find major discrepancies by ad channel, right? Like Triple Whale will maybe over attribute in their opinion social ads like Facebook. Other cases, Northbeam will maybe not look as great depending on the attribution model and the view that you're clicks and views view that you're looking at. So just always understand that with the attribution tool, that might be worth investing in if cross-channel attribution is really important to you. You want those insights. You probably shouldn't be learning data science to my level where like you actually understand the statistics that are behind these things and the code that actually works behind them. Because if you don't know that stuff, you're going to build something that's going to be terrible and you're going to be making decisions with really bad data. You do not want that. So I think, there's two different schools of thought, but also understand that no tool is ever going to be perfect. There's going to be discrepancies between the tools. So stop chasing the perfect tool, I think, is a really big point here.
Yeah, especially with attribution. That's probably one that I'd be like, if it's needed, get one. Just don't even. That's a waste of time trying to do it yourself. Like it is, that requires like data scientists and actually specialized people to understand all these points and the tracking cookies and all this stuff.
Yep.
The other thing is, once again, those attribution tools are not empirical science. It's more of a guiding direction with a higher probability of being correct than the ad channel. So once again, it's not correct. It's pointing you in the right direction with a higher statistical significance or like ability to actually be more correct. At the same time, in these platforms, there are different attribution modeling. So it's not like if you go from like impressions with like multiple clicks or last click, first click. So then you've also got to make the decision what attribution model you want to do, which will have profoundly wild different outcomes. So at the same time, it's kind of like it gives you a better insight than the ad channel does, but then also it doesn't because you get to choose your own journey and you probably don't know what journey is the best one to choose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would also say, and this, Cory, I'd love to just us chatting about this in terms of the attribution tools, but more, once again, processes. Clients who want attribution tools, like how much do you think they should be spending per month on ads? Or is it that they're spending a certain amount and they've got Google and Meta? Or is it like when would you say the minimum thresholds to hit? Because like a lot of e-commerces don't need it. It's just like you spent this much on ads, you got this much in revenue. Stop trying to like that 20% that you're unknown about. It's like just sit down and be humble, just keep doing the things you're doing rather than to be like, how do I like milk this next 1%? What are your thoughts on like when you should start looking for an attribution software?
If you understand what cross-channel attribution even is, if I say that and it goes right over your head, you should Google it. You should use an LLM, whatever you like to use. Yeah. There's so many now. Figure out what that is first. If you don't even know and you don't really understand that, you don't need to be investing in these tools.
No. But Cory, people are talking about it. So I must need it. Cory. No. I see the ads. I see that I'm wasting money if I'm not getting it. So I must get it from day one and pay $300 a month for it.
So I think more so than price, because I think people get too bogged down in, oh, how much am I spending on this thing? And because you don't, it's not always inherently clear the value of something until you've already started getting insights from it. So I think
Yeah.
that's a tough standpoint for people who haven't even used them yet. But if you are at the point, I would say where you're spending, I'm going to just say a decent amount of spend across, or you're advertising, or you're pushing marketing objectives more aggressively across multiple channels. And I'm going to let you guys self-define that, because everyone, some people, a big investment is 1 million. Some people, a big investment is 10,000, right? It's all
Yeah.
relative. If you're at that point where you're like, man, how do we know where we should put more efforts and resources? That's efforts, time, and money. How do we know, and how can we feel more confident on making those allocation decisions? That's probably a good start, a good starting point to start exploring attribution channel, or I'm sorry, cross channel attribution tools, because
Yeah.
that's the answer to that. That is at least the proposition, and that's the promise of those tools, is to provide you more clear insights, as opposed to you looking at every channel individually, and everyone wants to take full credit for the sale.
Yeah.
Facebook says, I gave it a, I showed the video, I should get the full credit for the sale. Google says, no, 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 but we converted on this search term, we should get the credit. I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they can only see what they can see. These things, these third-party attribution tools can give you, I like to say, an unbiased perspective on where attribution credit can lie. I'm not going to say should lie, because again, everything is relative, and
Yeah.
not all the tools are going to say the same thing. But that's how I usually look at it, as opposed to just a raw, how much does this cost?
Yeah. Interesting. Back in the day with Google Analytics, the older one, there was the assisted conversions tab, which was always really good because that did give a bit more of a journey there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, attribution's really an interesting one, just because some businesses it's super business critical, but for most it's not. It's just kind of a bit more like, I know for a lot of your clients, Corey, it's probably more business critical.
Oh, it's vital.
For
Yeah.
mine, it's not. I'm going to say that. It's not. It's not that the clients are not good or that. It's just like, it's a very clear correlation between how much are we spending and how much are we making.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that's all to focus on. All this deep data science is like, focus on other things on your website and your processes and fulfillment and having stock in stock, like all those things before this attribution stuff. I've got a couple of clients that actually use, like, actually probably about 3 or 4 that have triple whale, and it's actually just triple whale. Man, I look at it, I'm like, I can't do anything with this. Like, for me personally, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I get it, but I already kind of knew that. That's just my opinion on it. Once again,
Sure.
from my experience, I haven't seen, but you work with more e-commerce, bigger e-commerce clients, and
Mm-hmm.
you probably find better use cases for it. I don't.
Yeah. I really
But if
value
I'm probably
seeing.
representative of most people at the end of the day as well, which is like, it's probably not needed.